Welcome back, everybody, to Dr. Jim Unleashed. This is actually a follow-up, a part two, if you will, to my previous Dr. Jim Unleashed entitled Holy Spirit Amid Tragedies. Those of you that listen to it, you recall that I recounted the very first time I asked in a corporate environment on a keynote stage, Jesus, come to me, help me say something. I have no idea what to say. And that was amid the 9/11, literally the morning of 9/11, that tragedy that was unfolding before us all. Go back and watch and re-listen to that episode of Dr. Jim Unleashed called Holy Spirit Amid Tragedy. And you'll get the part one of now this part two. I'm entitling the shorter part two version, Corporate Character Amid Tragedy. Corporate Character Amid Tragedy. This is simply a follow-up to what I experienced in Central Vermont on that keynote platform. So let's continue the story. The conference was completed. That afternoon, I called the car rental company. I very seldom rent cars in my day when I was flying all over the country, all over the world, primarily giving keynote speeches, a lot of executive coaching and consulting, a lot of one-day gigs back and forth. And this was a one-day event in Central Vermont. Flew into Boston, rented a car, and drove to Central Vermont, Killington. I called my rental car company, said, hey, all flights are grounded. Would you allow me to drive this back to Pensacola? That's 1,200 miles. They said, absolutely. Go, 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 go. Thank you. So I had a two-day drive back to Pensacola. I just want to pick up the story on what happened when I returned the car to the airport. I could share a lot of other things, my experiences on 9/11, driving close to New York City the day after, actually staying in Washington, D.C. the night after the Pentagon was hit. That's for another time. I was driving back, got to the Pensacola airport, was turning in the car. Now, anyone that rents car in business knows that a one-way rental, because I had not planned to drive from Vermont to Pensacola. This was really considered a one-way rental. I was supposed to drop it off in Boston. Well, here I am, 1,200 miles later, and I walk up to the counter and I give the service executive person the keys. And I was expecting a one-way rental drop-off. They said, no fee, no one-way rental. We got it. You have a 2-day or whatever it was, 3-day, just the 3-day rental is all they asked for. Thank you and go. I turned to my left, and this was, in fact, I'm just going to share you who it was. At that time, I can't say it's still true today, but at that time, this was National Car Rental. And that was their policy nationwide. We learned very quickly that they were charging no drop-off fees for one-way rentals during this tragedy. What was then and what is still the number one car rental, at least for business travelers. I heard a fellow traveler dropping off his car, same situation, coming from somewhere, had to drive, and he was being charged an over $800 one-way rental, and they would not let him out of it. And I stood back and said, corporate character, because that's what I was speaking on all over the country, how to build a corporate culture that would attract and retain top talent through all kinds of business best practices and the like. Well, many of you know about, in fact, most of you, I'm sure, know about my book, Unfair Advantage, Unleash the Power of Holy Spirit in Business. And that's where we're going on Dr. Jim Unleashed, about the power of Holy Spirit. You'll hear that story and one example of a story in part one of this two-part mini series, M-I-N-I, mini series on Holy Spirit amid tragedies. But some of you, in fact, probably most of you don't know that there was a precursor to The Impactor. This was the last book I published before Unfair Advantage. And the name of this book is The Impactor, a parable on transformational leadership. Just before Holy Spirit asked me to write Unfair Advantage, I wrote a business story about what I observed in corporate America. It's literally said in my hometown, my birth hometown, Bowling Green, Kentucky. And that's where it's centered, there at Western Kentucky University. And it's a compilation of what I've noticed in men and women in business, focusing on one man walking out his faith in Christianity in front of a very non-believing news writer for a magazine, a secular magazine, who's very skeptical of business and doing it by faith. And I write on what I learned is what I considered the four virtues of Christianity and business, not values, but these were the four key virtues. The first is character. Today I'm talking about corporate character amid tragedy. Let me define for you what the Lord showed me several years ago on character, on the four virtues I'll share right now: character, competence, courage, and commitment. And in the book, The Impactor, I walk through a business parable, a story on how this man lived out character, then competence, then courage, then commitment, and how to walk the talk of being a faithful man, in this case, a man in business. This is how character is defined. I want you to reflect on this. This is today's teacher, Sherpa, asking you to reflect on what is your corporate character. I defined corporate character here as the depths of your convictions, the depths of your convictions. I could do a whole day teaching on the difference between convictions and values. It's different. But the depth of your convictions. What are your lines in the sand that you would never cross over? What are your convictions? It'd be wise for you, particularly if you're running your own business, an entrepreneur, or you're a mid-manager, senior manager, step back and say, okay, corporate character, yes. Let me help define my corporate character. What's the depth of my convictions? And here's three things that can help you live out your convictions, whatever they might be. Number one, wisdom is knowing what is right. What is the right thing to do? In business, wisdom really can be played out. What is the righteous thing to do? Characters has three components: wisdom, knowing the right thing to do; integrity, doing what is right. Integrity is simply living it out loud, actually putting boots on the ground. Wisdom, knowing the right thing to do. Integrity, doing the right thing. And then third, self-discipline, doing it even when it's tough, even in the midst of a tragedy, doing it. So the character of your company in tragedy, the character of your company anytime, is, do you know what the right thing to do is? Do your people know the right thing to do? Do your employees, your colleagues know the right thing to do? What is that based upon? What conviction is that behavior based upon? Wisdom, integrity, doing it even when it's tough, even when it might cost you a customer. It might cost you some profit. It might cost you some reputation, but it's the right thing to do. And third, self-discipline, doing it and keep doing it even when it's tough. Right now, we're all being tested in business in America, particularly those of us in faith. We're being pushed by the devil's puppets all over. And they're saying, is that what you're going to do in this time? We have tragedies developing and living out all around us. So I'm encouraging you, based upon my 9/11 experience, you can hear on the previous version, and now this, your character amid tragedy. This is probably a fantastic time for you to step back and say, in these tough times we're facing now, what is our character? Do we know what the right thing is to do? Are we doing it, and are we doing it even when it's tough? This is more of just a step back corporate lesson as your executive Sherpa on a spirit-led path to doing business supernaturally. This might be a good time for you to step back and say, what is our character? And sometimes in tragedy, your character is exposed. If you don't like what you see, now's the time to reset it. Hope this has been encouraging to you. This is a little bit different, but I pray that this does speak to you and ask you to ask yourself, it's a tough time right now. Is my character showing? Is my character honoring the Lord? Is my character of Holy Spirit? Do I have the Spirit of God living inside me and displaying and manifesting in the marketplace? It's a good time to reflect on that. Email me at hello@drjimharris.com and how this has impacted you. Email me your questions, your concerns, hello@drjimharris.com, and ask your friends to follow on all of my social media so they can get more of Dr. Jim Unleashed and everything we're about to release over the next many months. Thanks for joining. And I hope this encouraged you and exhorted you and forced you to think strongly about, hey, what is my corporate character? And what is it showing during these times of tragedy? See you next time.